Okay, let's talk about AEM. But first, my name is Marvin. I'm a freelance developer around AEM, and I'm doing this here because I'm learning for my lead developer exam. This is episode 1, and I'm talking about standalone AEM installation. Here you can see the topics I will talk about. The main part will be installation types, but it is not wrong to know about the other topics too. So let's begin with the requirements. I hope you have at least Java installed. I would suggest Java 8, but above is fine too. For my examples, I will use AEM in version 6.3. So what you need is this AEM Quick Start jar and this license properties file. And that's it. If the name of the AEM Quick Start jar is different in your case, don't bother with it. We will come to jar naming in a later chapter. All I do now is create a folder structure, basically for author and for publisher. You could name it like you want to, but I will call it author and publish. Copy those two files into each folder, and that's it. You're done with the requirements. If you are missing your license file for whatever reason, no matter, you can still trigger an AEM installation. AEM will ask you for your license data after initial boot up. So, installation types. Although there are many installation types, for example, Dockerization as a Windows service or on an Amazon EC2 instance, they all come down to 3 different types of installation. By double-clicking the jar file, by installing via console, or by unpacking via console. Let me start with double-clicking because it's the easiest way to start up an instance. So I've prepared the folder structure for all 3 types in advance. And trust me on this, it is always good to have your instances aligned in a solid folder structure. In the past, for example, I had 4 instances running with 2 different AEM versions for 2 different clients. And now I just double-click the jar file and the quick start window pops up, which will install your instance right next to the jar file. It will start an author instance on the default port 4502. And this will take about 5 minutes in my case, so I will skip ahead. If it is finished, it will automatically open up a browser tab by default with either the login screen or the license form you saw earlier in this video. By the way, the standard admin password is admin. For your standalone instance, that is fine. However, something your company should change if it hasn't yet. Like you can see here, the quick start window shows you the initial boot up duration, the URL to reach your instance, and a switch to shut down the instance again. Let us continue with the publisher. If you are developing, you rarely need a publisher on your machine. It mainly depends on your company's or client's server architecture and the workflow. To boot up a publisher, we need to change the jar name. The publish keyword will trigger a publisher instance, while the P4503 will trigger the instance to boot up on port 4503, because we already have a running instance on port 4502. You will see more about jar naming in the following chapter. Here you can see how magically the instance boots up on port 4503. Again, I will skip the boot up process, and the browser tab will open up the publisher with the sample content WE retail because it has no touch UI interface like the author. Here it is, and next to it, the author. The only difference between publish and author window are port and duration. So next to the jar, you can find the CRX Quick Start folder, which is the installed instance. Okay, console installation. Well, first go to your folder by command prompt. Then let's have a look at the help of the jar file, which uses a lot of arguments which we can use to enhance the first startup or the later startups. Let me boot up the instance now. The xmx argument sets the maximum heap space allocated to the Java process of the instance. It is a bit more than the default used by Adobe in its manuals. I will show you why. I also removed the max perm size argument because Java 8 doesn't use it any longer. While installing, you will be prompted for an admin password. This is one of the advantages over installing by double-clicking. If you see this message, the boot up process isn't finished. It will silently continue in the background. You can see this by opening up a browser. Well, not this tab here. This is an old one. Let's just open up a new one and go to your instance, and you see this message or kind of the same similar message. If you haven't added the option no browser to your command, the process itself will open up a browser automatically if it is finished. While the process boots up, I will show you what happens when this xmx setting is too low. Here you can see that the JVM has not enough memory and will fork itself. Problem is that the forked JVM still hasn't enough memory. Also, the arguments declared in your command won't be inherited by the forked process. However, you can find some information on the internet how to get around this. The simplest solution to not fork at all is to provide sufficient heap space maximum. Back at our installation, it will trigger the browser and the installation is up and running. Unpacking by console is the last installation type I will present in this video. It is the common way to manipulate the instance before initial start. For this command, you won't need the heap space argument. You just add an unpack option to it. And the output tells you then what it did. Extracting 33 files and not booting up because of the unpack flag from your command. And the startup can then be managed by the start files in the bin folder. Let's talk about jar naming. All of those files here are valid author names. Yes, even this one. The numbers set the port of the instance. If you have more numbers in it, a prefix can distinguish the port from the other numbers. If a port is used already, you get a notification while installing and the boot process is being cancelled. Even this banana here is AEM author instance because AEM defaults to an author instance and the port for 502. Now this here is a special case. A publish instance needs at least a prefix like AEM-publish. That would be a valid publisher. This here is just another author. And here are the valid publishers. Author, by the way, is no valid keyword. It just is another text element. Runmodes is another interesting topic. These here are the defaults of an author instance. CRX stands for Content Repository Extreme, the content store used within AEM. Before AEM version 6 it was CRX2, which was an implementation of Apache's Jackrabbit2. CRX3 stands for Apache Jackrabbit Oak, which has a lot of improvements and changes. The keyword author shows that this is an author instance. It will either be author or publish. Once set, it can't be changed. Well, the best option you have is to delete the CRX quick start folder and start again. Same for the sample content. It will either be this or the word nosamplecontent. Nosamplecontent, however, will boot up the system into a production-ready mode, which will imply the deactivation of some features and the removal of the WE retail sample content. This keyword, like the author keyword, needs to be set on first startup and cannot be changed afterwards. The CRX3 tar keyword stands for AEM storage system, while you could also use CRX3 Mongo or CRX3 RDB to either use a MongoDB or a relational database storage. The CRX3 tar is in most cases the sufficient choice. If you need a deep dive of what storage system to use, you can find plenty of information in the internet. You could also add your own run modes. This comes in handy when you have multiple systems, but your codebase shall trigger specific configurations only in specific environments. For example, you want to use different CQ mail configurations in integration and production. Then you will set up run mode specific folders in your codebase, and the corresponding configuration will be applied to the systems. There are multiple ways how to set run modes. I will show them to you in order of priority from high to low. By the way, you can't set the run mode while the instance is running. The first one is the sling.properties file. Here you can add a sling.run.modes property with the run modes. If you're doing an installation by console, you could also use the -r argument, which sets the run modes. The third way is to use a variable called CQ_runMode, which you can set, and after this you use the start script and start up the instance. You could also set this variable in the start script directly. Which then brings me to the start script itself. In the bin directory you will find multiple files. Mainly you need just two of them, the quick start bed and the start bed. If you have a Unix system, use the other two files. I will show you the contents of the start and quick start file now. The start file has the advantage that it will set properties if not defined. Here the example of the instance port. You could, however, define the variable before executing the start script. Switching to the quick start script, it predefines the port, for example, and does not set the run modes seen here by the commented out line, which results in an author instance. Like the start script, it also sets the heap space maximum to low and still adds the unused max param size flag. Let me go back to my start script and enable debugging. This is quite helpful for developing. I copied the string out of my IDE and will paste it for you in the video description down below too. You need the asterisk and the colon only for Java 9 and above. For Java 8, just remove it. Change the port to any unused port of your choice. My instance runs on port 4502, so I choose 4510 as the debug port. Okay, let me copy this over to the quick start script. And we are done. Yes, and this is the final chapter for this video. It's about the install folder and what you can do with it. Packages added into the install folder will be installed in alphabetical order on the instance when it is starting or even while it is running. For this you need a package which shall be installed. In my case, I downloaded the WCM Core components. You can find the link in the description. And to show you the magic, I opened the AEM web console and went to the bundles section. Here you can see that there are 519 bundles in total and all are activated. If I look for the core WCM components, I will find a version 102 already installed. This comes with AEM 6.3 out of the box. Back to my folder, I copy the zip file, create the install folder, and paste the zip file there. If I refresh the web console now, I will see an activated 106 of the core components. That's where the fun part begins. Dependencies. The WE retail package isn't active any longer, recognized by the installed flag or on top of the list by the summary. Mainly because this package depends on the core components 102. Furthermore, if you delete a package from the installed folder, it will be deleted from the instance. And that's it for now. Thanks for watching, and if you have any questions, feel free to comment.